Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I will be talking about three books. So the first two books I'm gonna go really fast because the third one will be a very lengthy talk. So anyways, it finally happened. My shop got the saga number 52 3 weeks late, so finally got a chance to read this, and I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about it anyways because a lot of people have already read it. I will say that I really enjoy this issue. Things are getting interesting for our protagonists, uh, as there is a much more palpable danger closing in on them. So the next few couple of issues are going to be very interesting, uh, and yeah, it's a finally a good issue. The next one is Flash number 48. So this is the Matina variant. I really like the new approach for variants that DC has, which is the almost virgin covers, where they have the title and issue number and everything like in small letters. You can't really see it. There we go. And really just highlighting as much of the artist's work as they can, which is almost all of it. A really good way to sort of use sort of the sort of negative spaces, and really cover up much of it. So anyways, right into the issue. So this really picks up where it left off last, which is so the Renegades come to the 21st century. They arrest Iris for the death of the Reverse Flash, and on their way back to their headquarters in the 25th century, Wally West is doesn't arrive with them. He was sort of taken away from the arrival point by Zoom, Hunter Zolomon, and basically we kind of get a confrontation between both Wally and Solomon. We get this sort of really nice, sad look at Wally and his kids before pre-Flashpoint, and so Solomon is telling Wally that he needs to go back to the Speed Force and destroy it so he could bring his kids back. The Renegades and Flash know where Wally is, and Barry tries to convince Wally not to do what Zolomon wants him to do because of the consequences, which Wally doesn't seem to care anymore, except getting what he wants. So this is different. This is definitely a very different Wally West from before, which makes sense. I mean, after being trapped in the Speed Force for so long, and then having all of these conflicting memories of the post Flashpoint era and then the pre-Flashpoint era, and he starts remembering things. Yeah, I think he seems to be in a bit of a major conflict. That we're gonna get anything out of the Flash War, like not a return of Wally's kids or anything major, I doubt it. But it will have at least some emotional toll on both Barry and Wally and everyone involved in it, because as the button proved, we got a lot of teases of Jay Garrick is coming back, which he didn't, and in the end, we really didn't get much out of that story. So it does feel the same that anything major won't be happening. Uh, it just sort of feels like it's prolonging the whole rebirth thing, which it seems like a lot of books and a lot of writers have abandoned by now and moved on to other things, be getting new creative teams. Now it's really focusing on metal and no justice, the aftermath of that, and the whole rebirth thing that started, what was it, 2 years ago, seems to be not a major concern to DC anymore. We do have the Doomsday Clock, which might deal with that. We got uh, Jeff Johns writing the whole Three Jokers book, which is a mystery he started back in the Rebirth special, which was left forgotten because, Geoff Johns got promoted to an executive position, so he couldn't do that. But that's like you're finally catching up on stuff that might not really matter anymore. And the fact that the Flash has to deal with the Rebirth stuff and not really deliver is kind of frustrating. It works great as a character piece, but that's it. I mean, it ends in issue number 50, right? So maybe I'll be surprised and something major happens, or it could just be, another Flash story that doesn't pan out and just an emotional ride for the characters. So yes, Man of Steel number 3. So yesterday, Friday, June 15th, I made a bold statement, which I've never done in the 5 years I've been reviewing books. In the almost 20 years that I've been reading comics in a regular way, I never felt any book. I never felt the way I felt about this book. So I said that this is the single best issue I've read in a very long time, and that this issue is also could be considered a modern classic. Uh, you are free to disagree with me, but I'm gonna make my case of why I felt this way about this issue. So, what happens? Rebel Czar arrives on Earth and specifically crashes in front of Superman's Fortress of Solitude, which he goes on and tears apart to the point that it seems he has actually destroyed Kandor. Meanwhile, Superman is still dealing with the fires happening in Metropolis and actually asked Batman to help him, because we know Batman is the world's greatest detective, and so both Batman is helping Superman and Deputy Fire Chief Melody Moore in trying to discover what's causing the fires, who's causing the fires as well. When Superman gets the alarm from the fortress and goes to see what happened, so he finds the whole fortress, totally destroyed. Everything burned to the ground. His entire heritage, shattered in millions of shattered, lost forever, including the Battle City of Kandor. So it's a very emotional moment for Superman because, especially for Kandor, which he hoped to one day help and as who promised to help to enlarge it and give the Kandorians a life that most of them have lost. Give them a moment to grow and thrive as a culture. The last remains of Krypton. Then, of course, we continue to have one page actually by Jason Fabok to sort of keep moving the whole what happened, damage to what happened to Lewis and John. And it actually ends to what I assume or presume is the prelude to the fight that we got in Action Comics number 1000. So that's what happened in this issue. Why do I think what I think about this issue? What made me be bold enough to say this is one of the greatest single issues I've read and it's sure to be a classic? It's three things, actually. Maybe four things. So the first thing, Ragol Zar claims to have destroyed Krypton. So he claims to have destroyed Krypton, but that's sort of at this point we are in a bit of doubt that happened. He could have done it, or it could have been a natural disaster and things he did it, or kind of caused the natural disaster. So in issue 1, we learned that he has a problem with the Kryptonians expanding to other systems. It's pointed out by one of the powers of the galaxy, or whatever you want to call them, that maybe he's motivated by the situation that happened to his own planet, and so he might have a bias and perhaps fears of other planets suffering the way his planet suffered, from whoever came and conquered them. He thinks that Krypton might do the same thing. So it's really a bias based on fear of something that may or may not happen. But he feels that he needs to purify Krypton, to pretty much destroy Krypton, wipe it out, so Krypton's expansion doesn't hurt other planets and other civilizations. Last issue, we pick up where Krypton destruction occurred and the aftermath. And once again, it's put into doubt that Rogol Zar was the one responsible. But it also seems that maybe he was, and that either the Guardians of the Universe knew about it, or just one Guardian and is covering it up. Because as I mentioned in the last issue, in the last review, and mentioned in the last issue, the Green Lantern of that sector did not show up to stop that destruction. So is there a cover up, and did he really do it? This issue really shows us that yes, he is capable of doing such a thing, and it's the defining moment for the villain, for us to really get to know this villain in such a way. What I mean is, back in Superman number 2 by John Byrne back in 1987, there was the second issue focused on Luthor, and that issue defined Luthor for the post-crisis, how his mind works. Who is Luthor going forward in this new continuity? So the same thing could be said about Rebel Czar. We get to finally know who this villain is and what makes him tick in a way. He hates Kryptonians. Whether his hate is justified, we don't know, but he is capable of destroying anything that is Kryptonian, even life. So whether he did commit the destruction of Krypton, maybe he did do it. He had no remorse in just destroying Kandor, breaking and shattering into and killing all those little Kandorians. So to me, it was like, yes, this is a moment where we actually get to see that type of monster he is. He was mentioned as being honorable and serving various systems, planetary systems throughout the galaxy in an honorable way. So now we see that this honorable man, to say, to sort of use a term, or kind of, this honorable warrior, his bias and his hatred, whether real or not, whether it's justified or not, was able to cross a line and become perhaps the thing he hates the most. So it's very cliche in a way, but it's cliche because in a way it's true. In his own way, in his own righteous way to sort of spare civilizations some sort of colonial oppression from Krypton, which maybe wasn't going to be. And it seems Krypton was very conscious of their role as they expanded throughout the galaxy, of what their role is, and obviously meet with it. Step up on the role as a galactic power, as it were. So he, like I said, just fear, and that fear sort of drove him over the edge. And sees no reason. There's no reasoning with him. And so here we see that yes, he probably was the one who destroyed Krypton, because he is capable of taking millions of lives. The other thing that I really liked about this issue, that made me think of it the way I do, is that it defines clearly Superman and Supergirl's relationship. They're cousins, but we never really saw them as being very close. Like, Supergirl's doing her thing, Superman's doing their thing, and that's it. They sometimes we get together and team up and whatever. We saw something like that, early in the last volume of Supergirl. Well, not a lot, but early in the Rebirth era, where Supergirl is visiting with Superman and Lois and John. I believe it was in the fortress or the Kents. I can't remember where they meet up, but in that very rare sort of family environment. So here, when Supergirl shows up, as Superman is inspecting the fortress, Supergirl shows up. Superman discovers what happened to Kandor. Supergirl knows something is wrong, and we get this caption where Superman is thinking that his first instinct is to protect her and to shield her from what happened to Kandor because he loves her. As a father would love a daughter, as a brother would love a sister, a younger sister. Uh, just so it puts the relationship in the same level as his relationship with John, even with Lois, that she's very important as family. But considering what Supergirl has gone through, seeing that destruction of Krypton, living through that, and then seeing that destruction and death of the last Kryptonian city, um, uh, would really have a very big effect on her. Bring much more. I mean, if you brought pain to Superman, that would have devastated Supergirl, which it did. Uh, we get this amazing shot by artist Ryan Sook, where Superman and Supergirl are crying, and then they get back and try to find who did did this. So it brings, so like I said, that little moment, so that moment where we get a very clear definition of what Supergirl's place is in Superman's life, not just his cousin, but but just as close as family as he can have. So I thought that was very nice of Bendis to sort of bring her more into, bring her more into the Superman family, not just being there having her own adventures, but not really being as close a family member as Lois and John. Uh, the third thing, well, the third thing is Kandor. Uh, so we haven't really seen Kandor since early on in the Grant Morrison run in Action Comics at the beginning of the New 52, and nothing was really done about it. And so bringing back Kandor in and of itself opens a whole can of worms because there is a story there. And the fact is the fourth thing, which is more of a mention, as Superman is flying to Metropolis trying to track, Ragol Zar, Ragol Zar, Ragol Zar. He starts naming all the people he knew from Kandor, every Kandorian, and there are names that are so obscure. And what I mean obscure is like characters that you haven't seen. They only showed up once, way back, in the Silver Age, which, like I said, opens up a kind of worms. So we have references to Van Zee, who in the Silver Age was Superman's cousin and look-alike, Akbar, Van Zee's lab assistant. They both became the second version of Nightwing and Flamebird, which the original version was Superman and Jimmy Olsen. We get Les Lar, who was also a lookalike for Supergirl and a one-time enemy of hers. In fact, she even replaced Supergirl and teamed up with Luthor. Sylvia DeWitt, Van Zee, which a human who married Van Zee, I think it was in a Lois Lane story from 1960. So, I mean, that character only showed up like once and you've never really really saw her after is mentioned. Uh, so, like I said, it opens up a whole kind of worm because it might actually rewrite a bit of character continuity by adding not only the fact that Candor shows up, something that has not shown up since Rebirth, since the early New 52. Um, the fact that we got Silver Age characters being named, so does that mean that certain stories are back in canon? Is Bendis sort of integrating or seeing Superman's continuity? So like Grant Morrison did with Batman, which is like every story counts. Is he sort of seeing Superman's timeline as a singular timeline, and necessarily, you know, going through pre-crisis, post-crisis, post-infinite crisis, post-flashpoint, but like a whole singular timeline? I don't know. I mean, that'd be cool if that's the intention. If this is allowing him to sort of do these sort of things of integrating as much of Superman's 80-year history into his own stories, not contradicting anything more recently, but sort of adding stuff that had gone away. The way Geoff Johns did after Infinite Crisis, where he sort of brought, the Superboy stuff back. Superman joining the legend as Superboy. Um, and of course, not really contradicting the whole post-crisis thing that John Byrne did in his own Man of Steel miniseries. So it seems, at least on the surface, that that's pretty much what Bendis did. Just sort of did like what Marvel does, and just took every story and just seems to be adding it to the current Superman, which is cool. I mean, like I said, it opens up a whole kind of worms that might need to be explored in the future. So all of these things made me really like this issue, love this issue, and think, this is that this, at least for me, I mean, the art, of course, by Ryan Sook is beautiful, beautiful, great art, beautiful art. But the things that are explored in this issue, to me, just makes it, the best issue, the greatest issue I've read in a long time of any Superman story, of any comic thus far that I've read, and I've read a lot. And of course, there are classics, from like, the back issues and stuff like that. But at least for the past 20 years, that I want to say, this one sort of, and even in the past decade, this is, to me, one of the greatest stories I've read, because it just explores so much, goes through a lot of things, as I mentioned. So that's it for this week. So you are free to agree or disagree with me in my appreciation of this issue. I mean, everybody gets something out of, or doesn't get anything out of a comic, or don't see the same thing. I pretty much disagree with some people on some books as well, because I kind of see different things that maybe some people don't see as well. But yeah, perhaps next issue will be much better than this one. But thus far, next issue might be better than this one. But thus far, this to me this is one of the best issues I've read that I've read in a long time. That I think it will be a classic because of all that really goes on beneath the surface. So I bid you farewell, and until next time, keep smiling.